we're going to have the narrow one. You know, that was my biggest worry, is the setting for that. Okay, is that better? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. This is going to be a vertical one. Terrible. You know, I set the setting for horizontal orientation, but it's in a different place now. So is that better? You can actually see me now. I'm vertical. Narrow. Okay. So we'll live with it. I don't think you can change it after the setting is done, unfortunately.
Now it's good.
So so I'm going to give a little bit of background on the billboards, just to kind of, you know, and then I'll take any questions. Any questions on the billboards, feel free to ask me whatever. So back in 2015, Billy and I were out of Scientology, and we were living in Las Vegas, and we were trying to contact our kids. We were traveling back and forth to Los Angeles, and we were calling, we were going down to the different orgs and stuff, and we were trying to contact our kids that were in the Sea Org there. And we were kind of at a loss as to what to do. And I mean, I had all sorts of weird ideas. I was going to take a Starbucks cup and put a burner phone in it and try to get it smuggled into our son, because I know he likes Starbucks coffee. But anyway, we were putting up missing posters with our son's name on it, and I had my phone number out there. So after, oh, Matt, can the orientation be changed once I've started? Anyway, let me know if that's possible. If it is possible, I'll try to change it. So anyway, so when we were doing and then we had done a welfare check. I covered this on an earlier video, but then after that, we wanted to do something bigger. And a couple of people had mentioned the whole thing about doing a billboard, but I had no idea what that entailed. So I started doing some research on it, and found all the different companies that did billboards in Los Angeles. And there was a graphic artist, a professional graphic artist, who graciously offered to do the artwork for it. And he came up with a brilliant design, that whole "Call Me," you know, "For my loved ones in Scientology, call me," and then the image of all the people in the background that had been disconnected by Scientology. And so then we had to raise some money for it. And what we did is I set up a PayPal donation button. And I put out there as widely as I could. And man, right off the bat, within a week, we had $70. Okay, might not have been enough for a billboard. So again, I was at a bit of a loss. So somebody suggested GoFundMe, and that was new to us. I'd never heard of it. So I set up a GoFundMe account, and the nice thing about the GoFundMe thing is you can put more of a description on how it works and what the deal is, what you're trying to raise the money for. I had that set up, still not getting any money. So I ended up, at the time I was kind of doing a little bit of interviews and stuff with Tony Ortega on the Underground Bunker. And he offered to do a story on the whole thing about what we were doing, what we were trying to do. And so he did a story on us and, you know, featuring the whole thing about the billboard. And he put the link up there on that story for our GoFundMe account. Now, I started getting phone calls because I had my phone number on there too, because I thought, well, you know, people want to find out who we are and whatnot, because we were kind of pretty unknown. So people, actually, I shouldn't say it that way, but they didn't know me. So I had to kind of go through that a number of times explaining. And then I guess they went back on the bunker and would say, okay, yeah, we know who he is, and yada, yada, yada. So then the donations started to come in, and within 48 hours, we had enough for 3 months of the bill, and that's a lot of money. It was like at least $4,000 a month plus $900. We had a location. This was another difficulty because there were not very many billboards that close to any of the buildings. for a long time. There were a number of other ones, but nothing really that could be seen from any of the orgs. So we ended up taking one with, I think it was Outfront Media initially. And it was on like a street, literally no Scientologist, let alone any staff member, would ever go to. So we had to kind of rethink our strategy a little bit because if no Sea Org members or staff members would see it, then we had to kind of get the message out there a little more widely. So there was somebody who had a few media contacts, and so what we did, and then so what I did is I think I did a write-up or something, and Tony did a write-up on the billboard that we were going to be putting up, because we thought, well, if we can get enough press interest and enough media going, then maybe the message will get out a lot wider, and maybe some staff members and Sea Org members might hear about it. At least we'll put some pressure on Scientology on the subject of disconnection. So, so anyway, we did that, and you know, got some interest, but we also got the interest of Scientology. And I think it was like a day or two before the billboard, Scientology started putting pressure on Outfront Media. Outfront Media canceled on us, which is they could do it per their contract. And we weren't surprised by it totally, because they'll threaten to sue, and some of these media companies don't want to mess with that. And then we found another one. Second one was on Hollywood Boulevard, and it was not a bad location, but again, it was not really something that we went through the whole thing. We wanted to get publicity, we wanted to get media, we wanted to get coverage. So again, I had Tony do something, and I even did a video. I sent it to Tony and said, put this out, put this out, put this out. The rep that we had was the executive there, and he had spoke to the owners, and they knew it was going to be Scientology, and they were fine on it, and they were not going to back down if we put the billboard up there. And we got a billboard booked for Glendale Boulevard up near Dodger Stadium, away from any Scientology buildings. But the thing is that there's 1 million views on that billboard every month, and we figured, you know, we're going to get a lot of people looking at it, we're going to get a lot of people seeing it, and if we can get a little bit of media coverage on it, then maybe we can get the message out. So we were booked. The launch, I think, was going to be, it was early April. I can't remember the exact date. It might have been the 4th, 3rd or 4th or something in there. So we went down. We thought, well, maybe there'd be a couple of media people there. And we arrived. There was an entire scrum of media. We were looking at, we did initially an interview with 2020, and then there was Good Morning America, Today Show, Inside Edition, anyway, and then Willie and I were standing there, and we were surrounded by cameras and microphones, and they were firing questions at us, and the billboard in the background. And so we got what we wanted out of that, was the media coverage, and it was bigger. And then, because even after that, we went to the Good Morning America studios, and we did an interview there, and then the morning show TV morning show in Australia wanted to do a live interview with us. They set up a studio in Vegas where we went into, and they did the live, we did the live interview with their TV show in Australia. And then we were getting radio interviews, newspapers, for months. I was getting phone calls constantly. So we got a ton of media all around the world, BBC, I think we were Daily Mail. I mean, just everywhere, ton of media, international. And so we got the message out there on Scientology's practice of disconnection with the billboards. And that actually did get to, at least to our daughter, because when we were, when we did our second billboard with Through Lamar, we went to Clearwater, Florida to do that. And we had the billboard going up on East Bay, which is a little ways from Flag, but again, we were just going, at that point, there's no billboards near Flag, nowhere that really that Sea Org members are going to be able to see anything. So But when we were on the way, we were driving from Vegas to Florida, Willie and I, and we were in a hotel for the night, and we got a call from our daughter, and it was basically Scientology was making her call and getting us to stop doing the billboards. So obviously she knew about the billboards, and the deal was, if you want to have a relation, this is where I get emotional. Sorry. Anyway, they offered a deal that if we want to have a relationship with the kids, that we'd have to stop doing the billboards, stop criticizing Scientology, and anyway, just kind of give up everything we were doing. And I said, there was one other thing, I can't remember what it was. And then, so I said, yeah, I'll do all of that. I said, I'll agree all of that. But, and all those three things you want me to do, I just need you to do one thing for me, and that is cancel Scientology's disconnection practice for the thousands of people that have been disconnected. You know where that went. In the background, she had OSA sitting there, I'm sure several of them at least. And then at one point she was kind of halfway through a sentence and the phone cut off. So I'm sure they realized it wasn't going anywhere, and somebody just kind of hung up the phone on her. So the message did get to our daughter, and that was successful in that, at least, that she knew we were still fighting to lens, where he was getting a picture of every single person who showed up for the billboard launch. And, we had a good crowd there of people, of supporters. So, and they had planted these cameras all around, hidden cameras. Scientology had planted hidden cameras all around where the billboard, I don't know if we found them all, but there was a bunch of cameras that had been planted there, obviously by Scientology PIs. So anyway, I didn't care. What are they gonna do? So then the next billboard we did was back in LA, right near Scientology Media Productions. And you could see my Scientology Media Productions from the billboard location. And so we got, it was only up for a month, that one. Oh, the thing on Clearwater, that billboard was up for a month. And the day that it came down, the next day, Scientology put up one of their billboards. They wanted that spot. So I don't know if they put up one on the one we did near Scientology Media Productions or not. But and then, okay, so that's all the Call Me billboards that we did. Those. Uh-oh, I hope we're not losing this. Because we had so much that it went wide enough, definitely worthwhile. So then there was the Aftermath billboard. Last December, when we were in Florida, and we were at the Rinders for New Year's. I'm terrible. My memory is not what it used to be. Anyway, I was asked if I would help do a billboard for them, because they wanted to do a billboard for the Aftermath Foundation. I said, because I had experience at that point, I said, sure, I would help. It's a good cause, helping people get escaping Scientology. So I went back to the graphic artist who had done the Call Me billboards for us, and he agreed to do artwork for it again. Brilliant graphic designer, I have to say. He did that Need Help Leaving Scientology billboard, and the location we found this time, it happened to come available right when we wanted it. And that is a smallish billboard, but right near Big Blue. And it could be seen from the Advanced Org on L. Ron Hubbard Way. So we booked it, and and the Aftermath had gotten donations for the billboard to raise the money to do it. It was all booked, and the rep that I had, this was through Clear Channel, and I didn't think we'd have any problem, because the company that did our Clearwater billboard was Clear Channel. So I thought that, they did, and the Call Me billboard has the word Scientology on it twice. So I figured, Clear Channel should not have an issue with us doing a billboard for them in LA. Anyway, it went up, and when it went up, or even when I was talking to the rep, he said the whole office is behind you. You know, we're really rooting for you guys, and it was really positive. But once it went up, there was a huge panic in the Scientology world, because it was right on their doorstep, and they put up the first of all, they put up this lift, and then they put up another platform thing to cover it. They wanted to cover it, and I'm sure that they were threatening huge legal to Clear Channel for the Billboard. And you know, the Billboard companies, in all their contracts, I've read all their contracts now, and they always have an out that they can cancel at any time for any reason. So they didn't want to mess with Scientology. You know, even if they, like, Scientology wouldn't have sued, but they don't know that. And so I don't hold it against them for canceling it. But they ended up just going in there in the night, I guess that next night, and took the thing down. And that was it. So, you know, there were probably a few Sea Org members that saw it. So maybe the number, it was a really good number they had on there. Claire had gotten that number, 888-FREE-002. Easy to remember. It was just the word free in there, 888-FREE-002. I think it's one of the best numbers for a Sea Org staff member to be able to remember. So that's pretty much our Billboard history. I would have hung around a little longer in LA, but I already had a flight booked. So when all this kerfuffle from Scientology started to happen, and the Billboard, the Aftermath Billboard, was coming down, I was on my way to the airport, and I was trying to juggle phone calls and you know, when I was returning the rental car, I was sitting in the car on the phone like, wait, I got a plane to catch. I gotta go. So I wasn't really there to try to handle it. The company offered us a billboard farther away from Flag, but that type of billboard was one that really needed to be seen by Sea Org staff. Our Call Me billboard, maybe not so much, but anyway, so that is pretty much the gist of the Billboard history. So if anyone has any questions about kind of how it came about, how anything I haven't covered, just write your question in there, and I will try to answer it as best as I can.
Okay, so we have here, hey, Phil Jones, just so you know, Laura DOA are using your banner protesting this week. It is such an amazing, impactful banner.
Yeah, so there is another banner out there. When they were doing the that they were camped out on the fountain right near Big Blue. This is a message back to Kirby's mom. We had that graphic artist did up a really nice banner for us. I think it was like 8 feet wide, and I can't remember, 4 or 5 feet high. Directed a little more towards our children directly. And it was hanging out there in front of Big Blue for however long they were there. And anyway, I don't know if they're still using it or not, but they've still got that banner. So if they do get a chance to use it, they're fine to do so. Okay, any other questions or comments? Didn't comment and say, man, you screwed that whole thing up, Bill. You should have done it this way. You know, it's funny, when we were doing that, the number of people I had emailing me or calling me and say, you know, you should, or, you know, you should be doing, or, well, you should be contacting this person or that person. It's amazing how much of that there is. And usually that's coming from somebody who's just sitting there, not, you know, I don't know. I was always tempted to say, well, go ahead. But I kind of held my tongue on that. Do you think you might want to put up another billboard again? You know, I've thought about it, and I'm not sure how effective it's going to be at this point. The thing I'm starting to realize is that getting through to a Scientologist is really difficult. The conditioning, you'll see, oh, Jenna, that's really generous. Wow, thank you so much for that. That helps keep us out here for sure. Anyway, so you'll see in some of these live streams that people are nearby orgs that people will walk away, run in the building, shut the door, bring the blinds down, and that's just a regular org. So the Sea Org, they're really closeted. They get taken in a bus to their org, in a bus to their account, put up on the way. They would take another way, or they'd figure out something. And I've heard there's tunnels now underneath the roads for them to go from one building to another, just so they don't see the protesters. I think a billboard, I honestly don't know what the best way to contact Sea Org members right now is. How difficult has it been to undo the deeply embedded beliefs of the OT levels? I'll have to ask my body things about that one. I know I'm kidding. When in 2009, when the Truth Rundown came out, and I started watching all those videos, and Mark Bunker had done an interview with Jason Begay, and when Jason was going through his thing, and he said that thing about show me a clear. The reason I got into Scientology in the first place was having read about in Dianetics about a clear and the attributes of a clear. I was a swimmer at the time, and I was wearing glasses. I still wear glasses, but and then I was doing gymnastics. And when you're in sports, it's difficult with glasses. And I wanted the perfect eyesight that a clear is supposed to have, perfect memory, and all that. Anyway, all those. So when Jason Begay said, show me a fucking clear, it was like a switch for me. It was like, oh, I've never seen a single clear with a single, not even a portion of any of those attributes, nothing. I've never seen a clear with any iota of any of the attributes that offered in Dianetics. And I know that if you're talking to a Scientologist and they say, well, there's other things later, and they're talking about body things or something else. There's a policy that every Scientologist reads when they start a course. There's keeping Scientology working, and there's technical D grades. And a technical D grade means that you're sort of saying that old technology is no longer valid or no longer used. So if somebody says, well, Dianetics or stuff sooner, that's a crime in Scientology to say that. So you could actually tell them that. If somebody says, if you said to them, well, how come Dianetic clears don't have the abilities? And they say something like, well, there's other things included in that. You can tell them, say, oh, you just committed a crime in Scientology. That's a technical degrade. So anyway, if you ever get the chance, so seldom you get to talk to a Scientologist. Watch my other video. I got to talk to a Scientologist who called me from St. Hill, trying to sell me the Purification Rundown, and see what he says about disconnection. I made a video on that. Could motivate. Okay. So are there other questions? Any other questions? I'll answer. Okay. So we don't need to sit.
It says here, do you have any knowledge of the Detroit org?
I don't have. Oh, no, I don't have any knowledge of the Detroit org, but I'm thinking about at some point going down to the Buffalo org, which is maybe less than an hour from here. We're right on the border. So maybe we'll do a little road trip down there and do a little live stream from the Buffalo org and just see how they're doing. But Detroit, no, sorry, I just don't know anything about that. The orgs I've been to are Toronto, Cambridge, Flag, Vegas, pretty much like the Big Blue, Scientology Media Productions. I've been to Denver org, a few others around. Years and years ago, I was at the Vancouver, near the Vancouver. I went by it, I guess I should say, but haven't really been to it. Maybe I don't know the issues of media there. Scientology, no. Any comments, questions? You can ask me about anything else then. We're done with the billboards. But I know there were some questions that came up about how, like, why we were getting shut down, and the media, the articles going up on the underground bunker beforehand, and But that was me doing that. That was not Tony Ortega putting them up against our will. I was asking him to do that because I was going for the media coverage and the publicity, because I knew that we weren't near any Sea orgs at that point with our billboards. Do you think you'd like to go back to LA? 100%. I would like to go back to LA because that's where our kids are, and we are a kind of well, we're in Canada now, and we've been here for about 5 years. We do get back and forth to Florida a little bit because our grandkids are there and our great-grandkids are there. And they're not in Scientology. None of them are, and they will never be in Scientology, I guarantee. But our kids are in Los Angeles, and I'd like to get back down there and definitely see if we can go past the orgs and maybe do a little protesting or something. Maybe we'll figure out some way to contact people in the Sea Org. Can you say where you are? It's nice. Oh, yeah. So I did cover that in the beginning, but I think we were kind of messed up because of the whole orientation thing. We're in a place called Dufferin Island. There's a nice island here, a little water thing here, and there's lots of birds. It's kind of a bird sanctuary. We're about half a mile or mile above the falls. You can actually hear faintly in the background the Niagara Falls in the background. We're above the falls, so we're like, falls are that way. And then below that, the escarpment, and then you go out to Lake Ontario from there. Yes, Nancy, good point. So I put a link in the description about, because on the SPTV, God, I always forget this. There's a link in there to, like, anybody who lives in the United States can just write an email or a letter or whatever to their government representative and see if we can get a hearing going on Scientology's tax exemption. And I think it's going to take some pressure. When can I give you and Willie hugs again? Oh, Scooter Mom. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll have to get together because we had Monica out here this weekend, and it was really nice.
Michelle.
Or Michelle, I'm sorry, we had Michelle. I'm terrible here. All right. So yeah, we had Michelle out here. So Monica, next event, we'll try to get into the city to come and help and protest with you guys. We love what you guys are doing. Toronto activists, Scientology activists, I think they get my respect for sure for the work they're doing, and the Vancouver guys too. Jeff and his wife Andrea and Sandra in Haggis-Bash in Toronto. They're on this program to kind of get these front groups out of various places that they've sort of gotten themselves into. So yeah, they're doing some really good work along that. You have two children in the COS or other kids with your grandkids in Florida. We have one other son who is not in Scientology. We try to keep him out of the mix. He doesn't really want to get into it. It was really difficult for him to lose his brother and his sister. And he's the one with the kids and the grandkids. So they're out. And so, you know, we kind of keep that out a little bit. But we get down to Florida. Last year we went down for all of December, and we're hoping to go for longer this year. So, yeah, my brother and my sister are still in, but, you know, and they live like literally 10 minutes from where we live, but they're in Scientology still and disconnected. But, you know, my brother and my sister are both, well, my sister's OT8, my brother's OT3, and they were both heavily connected to OSA. My brother worked for OSA for years. I think he said 20 years at one point. My sister has never been on staff, but she's always worked with OSA. And she's been like a Scientology troll for years, even back in the alt Scientology, those chat rooms that she'd go in there and stir things up. And she's been doing it. She probably still does that. I mean, for all I know, she goes on YouTube and is one of the trolls on there and stirring people up. She could be on She could be on ours for all I know. She's that type. She'll sit on her computer and she goes under fake names and she will stir things up, and that's her whole thing. But they've seen it all and they don't care, and they still stay in. And if I don't get back in contact with my brother and my sister, I can live with that. I just want, you know, we want to have our kids back, and that's the deal. Okay, more questions you got?
Who is your brother?
Who is your brother? Oh, my older brother is Martin Jones, and my sister is Gwen Van Cleef. She's her husband owns a campground here in, well, I guess my sister too now that she's married him. But they have a campground here in Niagara Falls, and I think they do well. I mean, it's a big campground, and Niagara Falls is a tourist area. So people come from all over the States and Canada, and they camp out there. So I think she does pretty well. I think she's a fairly big donor in Scientology she's the one who told me, this has got to be more than 10 years ago, because we've been out for over 10 years. So when we were still in touch with her, and Toronto was doing all these fundraisers, she told me once that Toronto Public had raised $5 million to renovate the Toronto Org, that building at 696 Yonge Street that's decrepit and falling apart. And she told me, though, that at one point, Scientology International needed the money for Google Ads and scooped up the whole $5 million, so they had to start all over again. So they've been fundraising now again for another 10 years. So I'm sure they've got at least another $3 to $5 million, and no renovations done at all. So they're probably $8-10 million in, and nothing's being done. You got to wonder what they're thinking at this point. Are they, you know, I don't know. I don't see many fundraisers going on anymore, so maybe they've kind of given up. And most of the people I've noticed that are still in, I check once in a while, it's all the people we knew from back in the 70s and 80s and their kids. Few new people, but mostly people that we knew from way back then. Some of them have passed away, sadly, but you know, a girl we knew for a long, long time. She passed away last year from cancer. Another one, I think 2-3 years ago. You know, it's just we're getting to that age now. We're in our 70s, so if he was in OSA, I may have known him. I definitely know your daughter. Oh yeah. Well, Emily, our daughter Emily worked in RTC for years. She actually worked directly with Miscavige, and now she's at Author Services, which now usually goes under Galaxy Press. And they do the fiction books, the Hubbard fiction books, and then she'll go around to these Comic-Cons and book fairs and stuff, and they'll push the Hubbard fiction book. Last year, they were at Comic-Con in Tampa, Florida, and Aaron went down there and talked to her. Good for him. You know, it didn't make any difference, obviously. She's pretty in there, but I don't know. Anyway, so interestingly enough, they were in Tampa again this year, but Emily was not there. But then the show after that in Georgia, Emily was there. So I think they were just probably nervous about somebody showing up again in Tampa. Maybe we should just start showing up at all these shows and just talk to her nicely and say, hey, why don't you call your parents? Call your mom. Catherine, my brother who was in OSA was really DSA in Toronto, so not really an OSA international or anywhere international. So you might not have run into him at that there. I think you should show up. I'm not sure what you mean. Show up. Oh, at one of the Comic-Cons. Yeah, I've thought about that, but it's a bit for us. I mean, we travel a little less than we used to. We're sort of semi-retired, so it's a bit of a stretch for us to do too many trips like that. for that. But we'll try to get out to one at some point. I definitely would like to show up. And, you know, being Comic-Con, maybe I can walk up in a mask and take the mask off. So that I did have once, there was, when they were doing a show in Salt Lake City, and I had a friend there who, she was a psychiatric nurse, actually, really, really nice lady. And she went to talk to our daughter, pass a message on to her. And she told me afterwards, she stood away and watched our daughter while she was at the show. And she said, I guess her husband wouldn't let her any more than like 3 feet away. He was constantly watched, constantly. So our daughter is very closely monitored, but she's been so close to Miscavige that, anyway, she did get to pass our daughter a note. And here's where the conditioning comes in. Our daughter took the note, handed it off to her husband, and that was it. And I'm sure Emily just never got to read the note. So we keep trying. She did apparently try to leave at one point. I'm not sure how long ago that was. She walked out of the building and walked down the street, and Miscavige sent his crew after her to drag her back, which they did. I don't know how they convinced her, but obviously they did. But if she walked out once, she can walk out again. So sample letter and list. Yes, yes. Scientology's tax-exempt status needs to go. Please, please, please. Anybody living in the States or American citizens, please do those letters. I think it's going to just take a lot of pressure to a lot of government agencies. So are there any other questions or no questions? All right, so I'm going to probably wrap this up. I apologize for the vertical thing. I know that's so frustrating to some people. You know, unless it's like one of those 30-second shorts or something. I really thought I would have this thing mastered because I saw the button for horizontal and I was sure I pressed it, but somewhere along the line it went astray. I'll do better next time. I'll talk to Matt at MD Media and see if I can find out from him just how to do this properly. And anyway, thank you to those people who did show up and watch this video. And next time I'll go for horizontal without having everybody fall off their chairs. Okay, so now somewhere on here, there is a button to hang up, and I do not know where it is. This might be it. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you showing up.